Hey there everyone, welcome to Northlight Photographic Workshops. And first let me apologize for being kind of scarce here on YouTube lately. I've been putting a lot of my effort in over on Patreon lately to get my whole site set up and to get everything categorized where it should be and all the formulas online. And I'm continuing to grow it, and I really invite all of you to come join me over there. But what I'm going to show you now is a video that is from Patreon that I've been doing here. It's every week I've been putting up a photograph or a choice of 3 photographs that people can choose, and then once they've chosen that photograph, I do another video on how I produce that image, and they've turned into a lot of fun. And so I'm going to show you that right now, but before I do that, I just again try to follow me over on Patreon if you would. Just $10 a month gets you all of my stuff all in one place, and I'm continuing to grow it. And I'm really enjoying that community, and I'm enjoying the contact I'm having with people, and everything comes through to me on my app. I can answer questions right away. So anyway, consider it, have a look over there. But in the meantime, enjoy this one. I hope you like it. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye. Well, hi everyone. Welcome back to Northlight Photographic Workshops. And welcome to a sweaty day up here in the north. It's dark now, but today was our first kind of true summer day. And it was really nice, but I'm already feeling the oppression of the humidity, and fortunately in here I keep this place pretty well humidity controlled, and it's nice and cool most times. Well, hey, thanks for coming back, and thank you for answering my request for the poll. It was really fun to see democracy in action, and I'm going to reveal the photograph here in a minute, but it was really interesting to me because it's not the photograph that I would think it would be or that you would have chosen. So, I mean, I'm glad. It's fun. It's fun to see democracy in action, like I say, and to see which image you picked. And so, without further ado, here we go, drum roll. And the image you chose was this one, which was a shot that I made back in 2021 in Faroe Islands, in a place called Dalur, on an island called Sandoy, which, interestingly enough, this last trip that I was just there in the spring was the first time I was able to get to this island without having to take a ferry over. They've built a series of tunnels that are just incredible in Faroe Islands, and even this little island, which doesn't have that much of a population, got an island. And as far as I know, it's one that's going to be extended on further south to the farthest island, which is going to be at about another 25-kilometer tunnel. So that'll be pretty cool. Anyway, this is Dalur. And I'm really glad that you chose this photograph as well, because it's going to be a real interesting one to show you what its original state was. Again, I said in the last video where I was presenting this poll that I don't normally show people my raw images, so you're going to get to see them here. So anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the develop function here. Now, I use Lightroom for most of my my processing work these days. Most things I do are shot digitally now. I do some analog film stuff, but even that gets scanned over, or not scanned so to speak, but I photograph it with a high resolution camera, and I take that negative and I work it up digitally now. And I save my darkroom now for alternative processes, which you've seen if you've been watching my videos. I do like to print in the silver gelatin process, but it's just something that I don't know. I'm just been really caught up and enamored with creating digital negatives and working in different alternative processes with large negatives in contact printing process. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to very quickly show you what this was prior to my workup like this that you've seen. Now again, this is going to be kind of embarrassing, because one of my things that I always do tell people when I'm teaching them in my big bugaboo is crooked horizons. So what happened was, you're going to see actually in this photograph what happens when I photograph. So there you go. This is it. This is that image. just raw out of my camera. Now, as you can see at this time, right here, like look down where my cursor is, there's these little spots right here. Now those spots are spots that are on my sensor in my camera. Now the camera that I was shooting that I was using when I made this photograph was my Nikon D810, and in that version of the camera, it didn't have the ability to crop down 1:1 in the viewfinder, to crop the sensor down 1:1, which was normally my mode of operation. You know, any of you that know my work from going back, way back, I've been shooting with a Hasselblad for years and years and years, and that's a square format, and I always really liked that square format to work with. So very often with my digital cameras, I will crop to that 1:1. But now with the D850 that I'm using, the Nikon D850 that I'm using, I can crop in that 1:1. Now, of course, I mean, a lot of you are going to say I'm wasting real estate on my sensor, but I really don't care. You know, I mean, I just like being able to use the image that way. And as you can see here, this image, when I was photographing it, I was thinking in square terms when I was doing it. And I don't know why I allowed myself to shoot with a crooked horizon like that, other than perhaps on this trip I was working quickly or something like that. But now, as you can see in the image, the water is quite flat. Now, very often on landscape things like this in the daytime, I'll shoot with a neutral density filter. Now, I'll do other things on neutral density filters in the future, but with a neutral density filter, and this is a 10-stop neutral density filter, what I'm able to do is I'm able to slow down that shutter during the daylight, during the sunlight, and I'm able to get a much more, I'm able to slow that shutter down, and I'm able to simulate kind of a later in the day kind of an image where I can slow things down, I can get movement in the water, and therefore it sort of flattens out the water as you do a longer exposure. So there's a good chance, I mean, I can go in here to the metadata and look and see maybe how I photograph this. Let's see. Where is my, let's go back into library and see if it'll show me there. Yeah, here we go. Let's see, it was, no, it really doesn't show me anything specific about the image. Anyway, other than it was shot September 28th, 2021. Now, I'm thinking it was probably a 20-30 second exposure, something like that. It's closed down. I can see that things are very nice and sharp everywhere. But this is just one of the techniques that I use in my landscapes, is that I like to slow things down. I like to have movement in the sky. I like to have movement in the water. You know, not everything is just a quick frame. And you'll notice in some of my images too, I'm not really trying to get everything in focus either, you know, because when you see visually, you know, like right now, I'm focused on the camera that's making this video, and I can see that in focus, but everything else in the periphery is out of focus. So sometimes I like to photograph that way. I call it selective focus. And another thing that I do with my photographs is I photograph with my mind's eye. Now, what that means is that I'm pre-visualizing what it is that I'm going to get in the end. And this comes from years of doing this, knowing what I can do in exposures, and knowing what I can do with a scene afterward, be it in the darkroom or be it digitally. I know what I can do, and so I start seeing that way, if you know what I mean. So this image to me wasn't as bland as it seems right now. Now, images very often when they come out of a digital camera will look pretty bland, especially if you're shooting in RAW format, which is what I do, and I highly advise all of you to photograph in RAW format if you're making anything that you want to do things with in the future. I mean, if they're just snapshots, JPEG settings are just fine, you know, but I like to shoot everything in the highest resolution I possibly can. And in RAW format, that means that I have quite a lot of control over what is in that image. I mean, it's basically like taking back, it's like having your negative, and your negative has all of the information in it, but it isn't until you get that negative into the darkroom that you can really work it and see what it is that you can do with it. So anyway, let's move on here, and I'll show you what I did with this to make it actually what you saw. So, I mean, once again, I'll go back to that. So here we've got undo module change. Well, let's go back here and we'll go back to undo reset settings. So it's going to take a couple seconds here and it's going to go back to what I had done prior. There we go, bingo. And so you can see I did quite a bit with it, but I didn't invent anything in this photograph. Everything in this photograph was there. And I saw it in my mind. I knew it was going to be something that I could work with. You know, I saw these clouds in the detail up in here, and I saw, you know, how the water was working, and I knew that I was going to get this little bit of the ramp in the photograph, and, you know, that it was going to help balance off my composition and that kind of thing. Now, composition is a really important thing, and that's something that I'll get to in future videos as well. But right now, this is what I'm showing you. So let's see here. We'll go back here, and I'm going to edit, and I'm going to undo. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back here, and let's go redo them. I'm sorry. I got a little bit ahead of myself here. All right, I'll redo the module change there. We'll go back to the develop settings. Now, what I'm going to do here is reset everything, go back to the original, and show you from there on what I did to this image. So there we go. We're reset once again back to the embarrassing crooked horizon and spots on my sensor. You know, we all get this. You know, this will happen on a trip. You know, you'll open your lenses and change your lens, and then all of a sudden you've got some dust that's flown in there and it gets onto your sensor, and you don't know it until you're done, and there it is. Fortunately, digitally, I can remove those. But for now, they're in there. So let's go here to my crop mode here. And I can go here to my crop settings here. I've got it unlocked, which means that I can crop in any way I want to. But what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go here to the original cropping, and I'm going to go to 1:1. You can see in here the 1:1 setting, and I'm going to hit 1:1, and that's going to give me a 1:1 view of you know, of what we're working with here. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to move that over a little bit too, because I want a little bit of that corner that I'm showing you down in here in my image. Now, I also have to straighten up that horizon. So let's do that here. Right away, we'll fix that. All right. So that looks pretty good to me. And we're going to hit that. Okay, so now I've got my image in the format and cropped the way that I want it. All right. So now my next task is when I'm photographing these, I'm not much of a color photographer. I do shoot in color, but I rarely let anything like that out. You know, maybe that's wrong because I've done my whole Detroit series and things like that. But when I'm shooting landscapes, I'm mostly a black and white photographer, and I think in black and white when I'm making these images. So first thing that I'm going to do here, other than straighten up my horizon, is to get in there and I'm going to make this a black and white image. So the way that I do that is I just go in here into Lightroom and I hit the black and white tab, as you can see. Now, again, I'm using classic Lightroom. I like to use classic Lightroom. I do use mobile Lightroom when I'm on my phone. It's fun to do, and there's the same tools. They're just in different places. But I like to use Lightroom because it also works for me as a library and a cataloging system for all of my images. And I save everything by date, going back, you know, 30 years. So it's easier for me to find things. So that's one of the reasons I like to use Lightroom Classic as well. But like I say, when I'm on the road and I can download an image from my camera and I can start working on it in the van while we're out shooting someplace and everybody else is out working and I'm done or something, I can work those images in Lightroom Mobile. It's very similar to the one that we're using here. So you see we've got the image here. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do right away is I like to go over here to my black and white mix. Now, what I can do with black and white mix here is I can find any one of these colors that are in the original image and I can accentuate them almost as if I've you know, put a filter over the camera when I was shooting with black and white film. So you could see that up in this, in here in the side there of the that headland there was a lot of green. So if I go over here to my green tab, my green slider, you can see when I pull that in that I can pull and I can make some texture up there in that green, right? So I want to do that. I want to add a little texture in there. I mean, it's there. Why not accentuate it, right? So I'll just accentuate that quite a bit, actually. I like to put some texture into that cliff there. And now also, you know, with the aqua, you know, you'll see a little bit happen in the water. Actually, you don't see much happen in their water, but you do see some. You actually see it up there in the, oh, I'm sorry, I'm back to the green slider. Excuse me, go back to the aqua. You just see a little bit up in the sky. I'm going to try that with the blue as well. See, there's a little bit coming up over here in the left side of the, you can see that up there. I'm going to bring that a little bit in there, just to get a little bit of texture in that sky, all right? And anyway, I'm pretty much just going to leave it that way. There was a little bit of oranges and things up in there that I could play with a bit up in that headland. You can see what's happening when I'm sliding that back and forth. Just going to add a little bit to keep that texture there. All right, so now, one of the cool things that I can do with Lightroom now is go up to the masking, and I can mask out my skies. I mean, AI now will go in and find your sky. I don't like to use things to add things that weren't in the image, but I do like the way that it helps me mask off certain areas so that I don't have to do a whole area of a gradient fill or something. I can just focus on that sky. So I'm going to go here to the here, and I'm going to choose the sky, and we're going to see what happens. Now it's detecting the sky right now, and you're going to most likely see it. Bingo, there we go. Now you can see that it brought a little masking down here into the water as well, so it sort of thought that that was part of the sky. I don't think that's going to be any issue to me, because all I'm going to do is bring down the exposure in that sky a little bit. Okay, now see what happens when I bring that exposure down in that sky? You start seeing the things that I had intended you to see originally. Now I can go crazy with it, bring it down too far, but I don't want to do that. I just want to bring it to the point where you're starting to see a little bit of texture up in there, right? There we go. Now I can play with other tools in here while I have that area of the sky masked off. Now if you go over here, I'll click on that again so you can see that we're still working with that original mask. Now what I'm going to do is come over here into, I'm going to play around a little bit more with some of my tools over here. Let's go down to clarity. I'm going to work a little, I'm going to punch up the clarity a little bit in there, and you can see what also happens here. And I get a little bit of extra punch to that sky, okay? All right. I like that. And then also the dehaze tool. Now these tools are tools that are simplifications of many more steps in Photoshop. Now they've taken some of the more common things that photographers like to do. Now one of the things that this is in clarity and dehazing is it's a mid-tone compression is what it's doing. It's taking your histogram and it's compressing those middle areas, and therefore kind of simulating contrast and things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out, I'm going to dehaze that a little bit as well. And you'll see it'll probably darken some. There you go. Yeah. Now I don't want to do it too much because you can see nothing much has happened in here yet, and I still want to bring a little bit of texture into that area, all right? So I'm just going to leave that the way it is right now. Now if I hit enter, you'll see that it turns into a little square here. That means that I've still selected that mask, but I'm not working within it yet. And then I hit it again, and that clears it away. So now I'm back. I'm not using that mask again right now. So what I want to do is I'm going to use what I told you before is a gradient mask. I'm going to go back here to masking, and this time I'm going to add with the plus symbol, and I'm going to go down here to a linear gradient, okay? I choose that linear gradient. And then back here in the image, you'll see where I can drag that down. And it shows you the area that I'm masking, and it's got a gradient to it, you know. So I can bring that down. I'm going to bring it down actually even past the horizon in the image, okay? And I'm going to work just within that mask right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to work a little bit with the blacks. I'm going to bring a little bit down in there because you can see what that does is it brings a little bit more texture into the sky and also into this headland here that I wanted. So watch what happens when I bring it all the way down. Now see that? I like that, but I don't want to go too far. Just going to back off a little bit like that. And there we go. Looking pretty good. Okay? Now you can see that that headland matches a little bit more this area over in here. Now here I could go back and I could choose the other mask if I wanted to by doing this. I can go back here to this mask, all right? Now, right now, I'm gonna leave everything that way, and I'm just gonna, once again, hit return, and I'm gonna clear both the masks, and now I'm working on the whole image again. So, now that I've done that, I wanna start working on the bottom part of the image. So the way that I'm gonna do that is go back here again, and I'm gonna choose another linear gradient in a mask, and I'm gonna bring that up from the bottom. I'm going to also overlap that a little bit with the horizon. So, and I've also got a slight tilt to it as you can see. Now, what I'm going to do there is much the same as above. I'm going to bring my exposure down just a smidge. There, you can see that. Now, I don't want to do it all with my exposure because again, I want to bring up some of the texture and some of the detail that's in this area that I've now masked. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to work with the clarity once again and just pump that slightly in there. Just a little bit. And now, again, I'll work with that dehaze a bit. Not so much. I don't want to go too far with it. There we go. All right, now, once again, I'm going to clear that mask. Now, it's starting to look sort of where I want it. But, you know, I have to also see these areas here that are part of the sensor sludge, I'll call it right now. That has to be fixed up later, so I'm just kind of working with it as it is. So let's go back over here now. Now, once again, I'm going to draw up from the bottom another linear gradient. Okay? So I don't want to work within that same one that I just created. I want to do another one because I want to do different things in there, okay? So let's go back here, create another linear gradient. This time I'm going to draw it up. And I'm only going to draw it this time up to this area, to part where that jetty is. All right? Now, I want to drop down some exposure now. Make that a little darker in there. Okay, now you can see how the image is starting to balance off nicely. And I think I'm going to leave it right about there, but then I'm going to come down here once again to the clarity, and I'm going to punch that up just a little bit, because that's going to give me a little more detail in this area where the ramp comes down in. And you might not think that that's a very important part of the image, but it really is. So there we are. All right. Now, it's looking a little bit out here, kind of light for me, and the same over in here. I'd like to work on that area a little bit more. Now, another way that I can do that is by using, I can paint in some masking in that area. So I'll show you that as well. So the way that I do that is I go over here to my mask, and I'll hit that, and I'll add another one. And on this one, I'll go to the brush. Now it gives me the brush tool now, and as you can see, I'll go to a darker area here. You can see it kind of gives me a larger area that's my brush. Now I could go over here to the size and I could change that size, you know, and then I've got a little bit smaller area. All right, now I wanted that right there because what I'm going to do is in this area I'm going to start painting in a bit of a brush, a bit of a mask in there. Now as you can see, it's just a very light amount. Oops, I want to back up on that. My computer's running a little slow here. Let me undo. I put a little too much in there. I didn't know I was putting that much in. It'll take a minute to pull that out. There it goes. Okay, let's go back to my brush. We'll create a new brush. A new mask out of the brush. Let's go back in here, and now I'm just going to trust it. I'm going to go across, knowing that it's going to catch up to me here. There we go. And again, in this area, just a little bit. Okay, so you can see where I've put the mask in there. Now I'm going to come back over here to my exposure and just kind of see what that does by pulling it a little bit down in my brush area. There's a little too much. There we go. Now that I've done that to taste, I can go back in with the brush once again, and then I can kind of go back in and paint, and it will add that brush effect to the areas as I'm brushing it in. And it's just a little bit at a time, but as I build it up, it'll give me a little bit more detail in there. Now I can also come back over here with my other tools, and I can go in there and I can I can punch up clarity, I can punch up pretty much anything that I want in there or take it away. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding a little bit of, I'm going to adjust the blacks in some of those areas just to start adding some texture into the water into those areas. There we go. So let's clear those. Okay? So I'm liking what I'm seeing here so far. Now, another thing that I like to do is I like to kind of finally, when I'm working on an image like this, I like to add a little bit of vignetting to it just to bring your eye slightly to the middle. Not to the middle, so to speak, but take it away from the edges of the print. So I just don't like in my compositions to have an area where your eye just is prone to just disappear for the page. Now, and that can happen here, like if you look here with this cloud kind of diverting the eye off into this area, and you could, there's the danger that somebody's eye could run off the page or run off the print. And I like to keep people contained within the image so that they start seeing different things and see, other things, or maybe in the future when they look at it again, they see something different. So what I'll do is I'll add a little bit of vignetting. Now watch what happens when I do that. I'll go down here and you can see where I've got my post-crop vignetting, which is what I'm going to need. And it's going to bring it down just a little bit. And, oop, that's too much, but I'm going to just go for a little bit. And there you can see it gives a little bit more interest into the center of that image and some of the more important areas of the image that I intended in my original composition. So with that, let's go back, and I'm going to clear those masks, and I think I have a pretty nice image here. I'm going to go back to a full frame, and then let's take a look and see again. Now another thing is when I go through and I'm going to print these images, very often I'll come back after I've made my negative and then I've made my first proof print. I'll I'll come back and I'll readjust the image based upon what I see in the final print that didn't come out the way that I wanted to yet. So I go back to the print and I do what I'm calling soft proofing. And you know, I'll go back and forth several times making my negative till I get a negative that I really do like. So let's do one more thing on this image that I want to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to add a little bit of a gradient from the left side of it just to kind of keep your eye moving down that jetty. You'll see what I mean here in a minute. Is I'm going to add that linear gradient and I'm going to draw that in from the left side here. And what I'm going to do is just use a little bit of my exposure here and drop it just ever so slightly. There, you see that? There. I like that. Okay. Let's clear that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of color to it. Now, very often in my images, I like to tone them if I'm printing in the gum process or in platinum and palladium. I like to add a gum layer over the top, or gum over palladium is what we call it. And that adds a bit of color to it, a little bit of tonality, and a little bit of extra depth, so to speak. Now you'll see what will happen. I'm going to do a similar thing to my digital image here before I would ever get to that point anyway. Now, if I got to the point where I was making a negative of that, I would take that color back out. But the color gives me a simulation of what it would look like when I make that print. So let me do that with you right now. Is I'm going to go down here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the color grading wheels here. And I'm going to be able to adjust the color slightly based upon whether it's in the highlights, in the shadows, or in the midtones. Now, I like to work with the highlights to begin with, and back when I used to print in silver gelatin, I would split tone between sepia and selenium. Now, I would put sepia into the more highlight areas, which would give it sort of an orangish yellow cast. And then I would put selenium into the lower, I would split tone and put selenium more into the shadow details. So they would be a little cooler. So there would be warm highlights and cool shadow detail. So I'd like to try to simulate that with my digital images. And so I'm going to go over here to my highlights wheel here first, and I'm going to push that up kind of into that sepia realm here, reddish, yellow, orange. There we go. Now you see that. You can see what's happening now, and it gives it just a little bit more of a depth to it, a little bit more of drama, and a little bit more feel to it. So then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go to my shadows and I'm going to pull those into the cool realm. See what's happening there? Now, I don't want to go too far with it. Just going to go a little bit. There you go. Now you can see how that goes there. Now, I really do like that. Now I can go here to the midtones and I can play a little bit with them as well. And what I'd like to do with the midtones is just to go a little warm as well, but not too crazy. There we go. Basically, that looks good to me. Now, once I have it done this way, I can see some other things in the image that I would like to have happen. And another thing is I'd like to have the top of the image a little darker, just a little bit more of a gradient coming down into the lower part of the image, and it'll make these clouds up here a little bit more dramatic. So let's add one more gradient fill up there. Now normally I don't do the color part of it until after I've finished off the image the way it is, but this won't hurt, and I'll show you how it happens. So I'm going to add here another linear gradient. And we're going to drag it down from the top like this. And now we're going to go back over here to the exposure. And we're going to bring it down. Ooh, that's a little too much. Bring it up a little bit. And there we go. I'm going to leave it there. Okay, so Image is pretty much where I want it now. And what I'll do to show you how far it's come once again is to just hit the backspace button. You can see when I do that, it takes it back to kind of where I began. And you can see dramatic difference, obviously, right? Boom. It's now the photograph that you saw and voted for. So now what we're going to do. The last thing that I'll do with this, usually before I go to printing it. Now, sometimes I do print these out as digital images. I print them on my 9800 here, or I'll print them on the P800 behind me right now. Pretty rare though, because I really do like to make a handmade print out of these. And I can definitely simulate what you've seen right here. I can definitely make a print that looks like this. But once again, now I'm going to go over for the finer points. Now, the newer version of Lightroom does have, in the mobile version, automatic content fill, so I could kind of draw a circle around these and it would take them out. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take it over into Photoshop. So what I'll do here is I'll go over here to Edit In, and I'll say Edit in Photoshop 2024. And that's going to bring, I want to edit my copy, of course, with Lightroom adjustments. And now that's going to open up, Photoshop. It's going to take a minute here. And it'll open up this image in Photoshop. There we are. Okay. Here we go. Let's open it up. Yes. Now, here we've got the image that I had you vote on. And here we have the image I just did. Now you can see, in my mind, it's actually getting there a little bit more. I kind of like it a little bit better with the higher drama. But this is the actual image that you picked. And, you know, I could go back to that, but I'm actually, you know, something about the person that created this image back in 2020 feels a little different about it now, and this is the image that I'm printing, you know, as now. Again, I you know, that last image that you saw, the one that I the one that I asked you to vote on in the poll, was an image that I had done a couple of years back, and you know, things change, tastes change, you change as a photographer, you change as an artist. But anyway, let's do what I'm going to do next here. What I'm going to do is show you how I take care of these spots down in here. Now, prior to the content aware fills getting better, I would go into here and I would choose my rubber stamp, and what it would do is I would choose an area nearby by choosing option, and then I would tap that area and I would know that that's what I'm going to be copying from. And so I would do something nearby and just go in, and then I would work on it that way. Now I'm going to go up here to undo that, and once again take it back where it was in the beginning, and I'm going to show you what I do now. If you use the healing brush, which is fantastic, I can go up and make my brush size a little bit more, a little larger. I can cover that area and I can just draw a paint around it, and it disappears it. You know, it takes it away. Now here we've got this other one right here. Boom. See what I mean? That one, gone. That one, gone. Now we've got another one over here. Now what it does is it goes in and it reads all the pixels around it, and it interpolates what it thinks should go there, and it's getting pretty smart. Now I would assume that this is what people would call one of the aspects of artificial intelligence. Now you can see I've got another little bit of a spot out here on the horizon. Oh, no, that might be on my screen. Yeah, it's on my screen. Yeah, anyway, when you're also working on horizons with the content aware fill, you have to be very careful because it doesn't do the straight line so well. It thinks it's trying not to make a straight line, you know what I mean? So here we have our final image, and I really like it a lot. I mean, It's slightly different than the one that I actually showed you to use in the pole. It's gotten a little bit more dramatic, as you can see. I'll flip back to that one. This is the one that you chose from. This is the one we just did. I actually like the one that I just did a lot better. Now, one of the reasons being is that, you know, you're always progressing as a photographer and as an artist. And, you know, here I am printing this. It was 2020 or 2021 is when I made it. So I'm 3 years down the line from that. And, you know, I've just recently made a trip there. I've seen it under different light. And, you know, I've just printed it differently than I did 3 years ago. So, you know, it's just one of the things. And so what I'll do is I'll save this as a new print, obviously a new date and things, but I'll keep it in my archive because it's good to see that kind of progression that you have over time. Now, here's one other thing that I'll throw at you that's kind of interesting. If you look at the screen now, this is the image that I just made this last month when I was there. Now, this is completely different, obviously. Different light, that kind of thing, but I chose to pull back. I moved over a little bit. I used the foreground. As you can see down here, there's a lot of barnacles and things that have added some light in that foreground, and so it's really kind of added to the whole composition of the image. So basically, you know, I mean, I've over a course of time, I've made the image back. You know, I made this image back in 2021. And then I took this, I made this kind of image, I made this print, so to speak, this, you know, this process of it at that time. And now this is what I've come up with, which I like much better. And then this is completely new, completely different thing. So, you know, it's fun to be able to go back to these places and to see them in a different light at a different time in my life. You know, I've got images that I go back to that I made when I was 18, and I look at them now, and I'll try to recreate some of them, and it's just like I can't even come close to being that person that I was at that time. So anyway, let's go back here. Really nice image. Let's look at it in full screen here. I really, really, really like it. It's very nice. I'm, you know, even if I do say so myself, I'm really happy with the way that I process it now. I mean, I'm seeing things in off in the horizon down in here that are quite nice, and I don't know, it's just really nice. I'm very happy with it. So anyway, I hope that this helps you. Once again, I'm gonna pick another 3 images, and I'll put another poll up for you here real soon, because I really enjoyed this, and I hope it helps you in your processing and maybe in the way that you see your own work. You know, as you can see in this image, when it was something, you know, when I originally did it, it was quite different, as you could see. You know, let me flip back here. Let's go to the reset and see if we can get that again. Now, that's a reset of the image that I made itself, but yeah, I mean, it's really fun to be able to show you how to do this, and I hope it helps you in your own process. So anyway, with that, thanks a lot for being one of my supporters out there. I really appreciate that. And, you know, perhaps tell a friend about this. As you know, I'm planning on expanding it quite a bit, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. So the more the merrier, all right? So till the next time, take care of yourselves. Look for the new pool. Look for the new poll soon, all right? Take care of yourselves, and bye-bye.